All right, 3 ways to find slope. The first one is the one we're going to deal with today, and that's graphing. So if you'll open up that tab, we will put a few things in there. I'm going to be writing on the top here. First of all, we will define slope. Okay, slope in terms of math and in real world, it kind of means the same thing. Slope is like the steepness of a line, how steep something is. But we kind of talk about it as being the rise, and I'm going to put or fall, because sometimes we fall. The rise or fall over the run. Okay? It's rising and running, kind of like a set of steps. Okay, how you have risers and runners on steps. All right. We have lines that will go up, and those lines would be considered a positive slope. We have lines that go slant downward. These would have negative slopes. You will see some lines that go straight, and they would be considered zero slope. And then you also have lines that are straight up and down, and they would be undefined lines. These are the two that get confused most frequently by students, okay? Now to teach slope and rise over run, we have this little guy, and he's not real, okay? This guy is not real. If you look up slope, you're not going to hear any stories about this guy. But his name is Joe. For our classes, I'm going to be talking about Joe for a while. His name is Joe. This is, I'm sorry?
The back of it, the one that has the lines?
Yeah, that's where I'm drawing mine. Doesn't have any lines. I'm going to draw Joe. Draw you a Joe. He's going to have some wild hair. All right. There's Joe. Now, Joe has some issues. Let's put a little star note here beside Joe. Joe only walks. He only walks to the right. He can't go left. Okay? That's major important for this concept. Joe only walks to the right, and Joe has another problem. He has to start, he's like OCD, he has to start on leftmost point on the line. Okay, so 2 things are going on with Joe. He only walks to the right, and he has to start on the leftmost point on any line that he walks. Okay? So, if, and I'm going to hold Joe up to my line. Picture Joe walking on that positive line. He has to start on the leftmost point. Okay? Watch as Joe walks up the line. Is he moving in a positive direction, in an upward direction? Yes. Positive direction. Okay? If Joe starts on this line, before I even knew it was negative, if Joe stands here and he only can walk to the right, here he goes, he's going downhill. You've heard of somebody saying, boy, they're really going downhill fast. Downhill meaning in a negative direction, okay? Joe is walking downhill, negative. If Joe starts on the 0 and starts walking, is he going up or down? No, he stays the same. So he doesn't go uphill or downhill. There's no slope at all. It's 0, it's flat, okay? If Joe stands on this line right here and walks to the right, Joe falls. And let's draw him. He fell and he broke apart. He's undefinable. Okay, we don't even know who Joe is anymore. He's undefined. All right. So, I'm sorry? No, he can't. He only walks to the right.
Oh yeah.
Remember, that's his problem. He's got issues.
Sideways.
Yeah, he can. If he's standing on the left, regardless of where he's standing on that line, if he walks to the right, he falls off the line and he falls and breaks apart. He is undefinable. Okay. Now. We're going to look more about Joe here in just a second. Let me go ahead and show you on a graph what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and place some points on our coordinate grid. Put a point at -1, -2, -1, -2. So you start at the origin. -1, -2. This should have been taught last year, but we've not really covered it a lot this year, so you may be a little rusty on it. Also put a point at 1, 3. So start at the origin. Go over to the right 1 and up 3. Okay? I'm going to use Joe. I'm going to use Joe as my ruler. So I'm going to connect the dots here to create my line. Now, my line gets arrows placed at either end because this is a line that never ends. Therefore, they go in both directions forever. Now, here's how you find the slope. We notice that the slope is always written rise over run. Okay, rise, and I'm going to put slash fall because sometimes Joe falls. If it's a negative line, he's falling. Falling is a negative action. Okay, so if I'm here, because Joe is on my leftmost point, that's where he starts. He has to rise up. Okay, how many blocks does he have to rise up? And then how many blocks does he have to run over in order to get to the other point? Because Joe is taking a journey. Okay, he has to rise up and run over. How many blocks does he rise up from this point?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He rose up 5, so that's your rise. And he had to run over 1, 2, 2. So the slope is 5 over 2. Will that reduce? It's written as a fraction. Is there a number that will go into 2 that also goes into 5?
No.
No, there are no numbers that would divide both of those evenly, so leave it as a fraction. Slope is a fraction, okay? Now let's look at one more. What if I have an ordered pair, 1 point at 2, 0, and then at 4, negative 2, negative 2? All right, let's plot that. 2, 0, make sure you're plotting this correctly. Over 2 and up and down 0. And then 4, negative 2. There's your 2 points. I'm going to connect my dots using Joe. He's pretty handy. Have around. Okay? Now, if Joe starts on my line and he's walking, is he going to be walking in an upward direction or a downward? He's walking down. That tells you that this line is negative and your numbers also have to be negative. Okay? Because you have a negative slope. So I know it's going to be negative. That means he's falling. Start at your leftmost dot. How many does he need to fall down? From this dot right here, he falls down 1, 2. So falling down 2. And he only runs to the right, so how many does he have to run over?
2.
Okay, now does this reduce? Negative 2 over 2. What will go into both of those? 2 goes into both of those. Divide by 2. It's going to be negative 1 over 1. That is your slope. Every time you get on a dot, if you fall 1 and run 1, you land on the line. That's what that means. If I'm at this dot, I'll fall 1 and run 1, I'm going to end up on the line. If I fall 1 and run 1 again, I'm still going to hit that line every single time. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask you guys to hold up your Joes, and we're going to turn around and look at the board. Let me get my lights back on. Okay, so hold your Joes up in front of your face. I got Miss Joe. And put them, I know that you have to put them on this line with me. Hold your Joe up and put him on the line with my Joe. Okay, if Joe starts on the leftmost dot and he starts walking, will this be a positive line or negative line? Positive. What about this one? Negative. Joe walks down, it's negative. This one? Negative. Joe's negative. This one? He fell. Okay, undefinable. And what about this one? Joe does not walk up or down. This one? Positive. Joe's walking positive. Okay, keep that in mind. Now we're going to move to our computers where we have to do a real quick lesson on your computers. Here's where you're going. Math Learning Center Geo board. That's what I want you to Google. And I'll do it with you so that way you can see. Wait on gluing anything. Let's get this done together here. Math Learning Center Geo board. Google it. There you go. That's a better print. Go to Google. Real quick, type in. Get with us real quick. Math Learning Center Geo board. Hold your turn it off and back on. And if not, you may have to switch out. Here's what it should look like quickly. Geoboard by the Math Learning Center. That's the one I want you to click on. If you click there, here's what it shows up. It's like a pegboard. It kind of looks like that grid, the graph paper that we just looked at. I want you to use the bigger one. Look down here at the bottom. See where there's different size geoboards? Grab the bigger geoboard. All right? And now, if I ask you to get a white rubber band, click and drag it, white rubber band, I want it to start on the same peg. Okay? Then I want you to grab that and I want you to stretch it. Show me a positive slope. So if you're showing me a positive slope, there's a positive slope. If I want to tell you, if I ask you what is the slope of that line, look down here, there's a pencil. There's a pencil. Go click on the pencil. You can change colors of your ink right here. I'm going to write it in yellow ink. Here's the line because I want freehand drawing. I start here because Joe has to walk up that line. He has to start on the leftmost point. So how many pegs do I have to rise up?
Oh, we're supposed to be doing
Rise up 4. I'm just showing you an example right now. And then run over. How many? I had to rise up 1, 2, 3, 4 pegs. Now I need to run over to get that other peg. 1, 2, 3. So right there, my slope is 4/3. Now if I tell you to grab, first of all, you have to exit out your pencil or you'll write all over your page. Your writing will come back. If I tell you to grab a red rubber band, get your red rubber band and start out with it on the same peg. If I tell you to do a negative slope line, grab it and you know that you want your line. I don't care how far you go down or how steep the line is. Let's say that's mine.
Oh, it's got a calculator in here.
If it's negative, if it's negative, let's find the slope. I always have to start at my leftmost dot. And now how many do I have to fall down? How many pegs? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pegs down. So that will be a -5. It's negative because it's a negative line. I had to fall down. And then how many do I have to run over? 1, 2 pegs. So -5 over 2. Okay. So right now, just for a few minutes, I want you to just play on this right here, grabbing rubber bands, making positive lines, negative lines, zero slope lines, and undefined. Down here's the clearing button. Once you want to clear it, look here. The little circles. If I click that there, do you want to clear your work? Yes, I do. So take just a few minutes, and then I'm going to ask you to actually make a few specific slope problems for me, okay? So play on that for a minute.